All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to week two. This is our second, what we're calling now the Empower Your Self-Sustaining Actor weekly Q&A call. So, last week we talked about mindset and how important mindset was for your foundation to, basically, talked about, we didn't talk about this, but I'm thinking about it now is like, building a house on, just the dirt and building up and, like even a shack won't sustain that long if you just build it off the ground. But pouring a strong foundation, you can build a skyscraper and it will last thousands of years if you take care of it. But the point to that is that the mindset is the foundation. Without it, then no matter what you put on it, it doesn't hold up. Any storm, any just light wind comes along, and it'll knock it over. So this week, what I want to talk about, something that I love talking about this, because when this clicked for me, acting just got so much easier. It went from something that felt like climbing an impossible mountain, like you would feel if you've never climbed before, and then wanting to get the top of Mount Everest or something like that. And it just felt like something that was just so unattainable, and something that you were either born with or you weren't type feeling to me. And even though it's something I really dreamt of doing, and I just wanted to experience being a professional actor. It kind of felt to me like football felt to me when I was a kid. I played football a couple years, and I was never really good at it, not because of my athletic ability, but because I didn't understand the game, and I didn't understand the rules. I didn't understand the positions. I didn't understand what I was supposed to be doing. And so I was always timid to go this way or that way, because if I did something wrong, I'd get yelled at and be like, Harvey, that's not your job. You're not supposed to do that. And so I was just like, I don't know. I don't get it. And that's how I felt with acting at first. But I kept at it. And when relationships, when it really clicked for me, that relationships, and I understood how to approach my acting work with relationships to connect to the world within the script, things got so much easier, and they became so fun too, because it was no longer this unattainable, you were either born with it or you're not type skill set. And like I've said, in last week, and I've said before, is like I studied the methods, the 5 methods, in my career at different times, and I got something from all of them. But what I never really liked about methods, and if you're a method actor and it works for you, like, do that. I'm not knocking it, but for me, what I never liked about the method acting was that, I forgot the sliding door was open. What I never liked about the methods was it was like this formulaic, one size fits all. If you do A, B, and C, you'll get results. And as I've learned in life, it's just not true. Like in any aspect of life, we're all different. Whether it's, we have different upbringings, our bodies are different, our beliefs are different, our what clicks for us, and that's where I'm going to explain with this. But being able to relate and make things make sense It can't be a one size fits all. It just isn't. So that was a frustrating thing for me, because like that stuff never quite worked for me. There were parts of it that did, but it didn't quite work for me. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm not meant to be an actor. I'm not that good, because this doesn't make any sense. But it's not true. Just like the football thing. Like I wasn't good at organized football, but street football, flag football, things like that, like it was just like getting together with your buddies. Like I excelled at that. So as I continued to study as an actor, as a director, as a writer, I started to find, especially utilizing the approach that directors and writers take on a project, and more so even the writer, but understanding the relationships between the characters and how that works. And innately, we all do that. I mean, how many times have you been, I say, like, you're the person on the couch and you're the person walking in the room. How many times have you been on the couch watching TV and you're, I don't know, halfway through a movie or a TV series or something like that, and somebody else walks in and starts watching, and they go, well, why is she yelling at her? Why is he doing this? And you got to go, well, and you got to explain, well, this happened, and then this happened, and they go, oh, that makes sense. Okay. And then they sit down and they can kind of catch up with you. It's connecting all those dots. It's understanding the relationships. And when I started to understand that relationships are everything in the script, and how we connect to the world. If we understand the relationship between our character and everything else in that world, then it makes sense to us. And then it clicked with me, because I've been doing self work on myself in my personal life for a lengthy amount of time. And it all calls for you to look at your relationships and look at your relationship to other people, look at your relationship to yourself and things like it. It all clicked. And I was just like, well, this is just like real life. Like my relationship to my mother, or my relationship to blue cheese, or my relationship to, swimming, or it could be anything, or an idea of like, dating. I know dating's a big thing. You hear about that a lot, especially in LA, how difficult it is to date. And with swiping, all these technologies that come out to where you can swipe now. And people, for me, I remember the first time I had a student, I was talking about this, and they're like, oh, like, I think they said like Tinder. And I was like, what's Tinder? And they're like, oh, it's this date, because Tinder had just came out, within a couple months. I didn't know what Tinder was, so I had no relationship to it. But as soon as somebody said, oh, it's an app where you for dating, I assimilated that with online dating, which I had been around for a long period of time, which I had a relationship with, and automatically I assimilated a judgment to that. So what I realized in just everything clicking for me with relationships is that if we can get a clear understanding of what our relationship is to the other characters, the objects in the scene with us, because there's times that we have a scene and there's no other characters in the room, and it's just us with ourselves. And and we've seen it, films, television too, where they pick up a picture that reminds them of something, or something is stolen that meant something to them. But what I find is interesting is when we're practicing the craft of acting, we think that acting is all about me and another actor. And a lot of the times it is. Most scenes take place, most stories implement multiple characters. But then you see films like, I think it's called Sunshine with, God, I can't think of his name right now. Um, but where the whole movie is him by himself in space going towards the sun. Or you see a film like Her, where Joaquin Phoenix has a relationship with his OS system, the computer. And so what do you do with situations like that? Well, same thing you do with a fellow actor is establish a relationship. So in establishing the relationship, understanding how you feel about the person or the thing, and understanding why, once that's locked in to your mental and your emotional, then we can truly just live in the moment in the scenes, and we can explore. That's where it's like, we've all experienced as actors, hopefully. And if you're new and you haven't experienced it yet, you will. But you just get so caught up in the scene that, you know, the scene happens and then you know, it comes to an end, and you're just, somebody's like, how was that? And you're like, I don't know. I just blacked out, because you were just so in the moment. And it's like, people are like, oh, I loved how you did that thing. Like, it wasn't even in the script, but you did it. Well, that comes from being so connected to the world that we take our hands off the steering wheel. Like, we don't worry about what we're saying or how we should say it. But at the core of that is the relationship, right? If we understand the relationship, just like you understand your relationship, if you have siblings, you get this. Or, you know, a group of friends, if you have a group of friends, if one friend came up to you and asked you a simple question like, are you going to eat that? Or, you know, what are you doing this weekend? One friend, let's go with the, what are you doing this weekend? One friend, you'd be like, nothing. Why? What do you want to do? And then the other friend, your response might be, you know, I'm kind of busy doing things, because you don't really want to hang out with them because they drain your energy, or, you know, maybe they did something last week that irritated you, something like that. But the point is that, you know, just like siblings or family members that you have a lot of history with, you treat them differently because of your relationship to them, right? I remember I have two sisters, and I remember at times asking my mom, like, who's your favorite? I already knew. But I just wanted to hear her say it. But no, I'd ask, who's your favorite? And she's like, honey, it's not that simple. There's, I love you all for different reasons. And in a young child's mind, the black and white of good and bad, love, hate, all this other stuff, that's where I was. But now as an adult, you look back and go, well, it's very complicated. And we rely on certain people for different things. Well, our characters are just exactly the same way. And if you understand that relationship and can establish that in a mental and emotional way to where it makes sense, then you're living in the world. I mean, think about this. If you're into, self-exploration of the consciousness, law of attraction, things like that, this will make sense. If not, and this is your first time hearing about this, it'll be a cool exploration. But our reality in real life, our reality is created by our belief system. We talked about this last week. Our reality is created by our belief system, what we believe about money, what we believe about love, what we believe about just anything in life. The world reflects that. So if you were brought up, money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard for money, things like that, then as you grow up and go out into the world, your belief is, I have to work hard for money, money doesn't come easy, things like that. And so the world will reflect that back, and it will make it challenging for you to receive money. It will make you work hard. Actually, you're doing it to yourself, but you'll have to work hard to make the money, right? But if you want to shift that to where money comes to you easily and you don't have to work hard for money, you do a little bit of work, get paid a lot of money, you shift your belief system, your perspective. And in doing so, all of a sudden you see you see the world differently. You see opportunities, you see things that come to you that you hadn't seen before. And so just like that, when we're stepping into the script, if we understand our relationship to this character, to that character, and we're clear on it, then our responses, what we say, how we say it, those responses not only come naturally, but they have a perspective to them. And if a director comes up to you and goes, you know, he's not that in love with her, then what you can do is you can adjust that relationship, just like adjusting your relationship to money doesn't grow on trees and it's hard to, you know, you have to work hard for it, to money comes easily to me and I don't have to work hard for it. The same thing happens is that when you establish a relationship to the world within the script, and you make it so clear, the world, now you're just living in that reality, just like you're living in this reality, just like you're living in this reality right now. It becomes your reality. It becomes your truth, right? And so it's like when actors are like, well, it's hard, you know, let's just say, you know, you're working with an actor that you're not that attracted to, but the characters are in love. Well, I always say, find one thing that you can love about them. And, you know, it can simply be the color of their eyes. It can be the way they smile, or, you know, the color of their hair or something like that, but it connects you to them. And then speaking from that love, but it's a relationship. It's a relationship that connects you to the actor, as opposed to the brute force of, I have to trick my imagination into believing that I'm in love with this person and that I'm really being shot at and that this building exploded and that whatever the story is. Establishing the relationships establishes the world for you to live in, right? So right now, let's say you have a mother and father, and you love your mom, you love your dad. And I ask you, like, what do you love about your mom? You go, well, I love this about my mom. I love that about my mom. Okay, what don't you like about your mom? Well, my mom irritates me. And we say this all the time. I love my mom, but I love my dad, but I love my sister, but I love my brother, but there's always a comma, but. But if I was to ask you how you felt about your mom, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, you would write out this spreadsheet, basically, or dissertation, that is the relationship that ties the two of you together, right? And then if I was to ask you about your dad, it wouldn't be the exact same. You have a different relationship to your dad. It could be good, it could be better, could be worse. And that's what connects you. And that's why when your mom says, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Versus your dad saying, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You respond differently. Now, if we know that the relationship and how we feel about them and why, well, I love my mom because in my childhood, she used to do all this other stuff. And that's why. But then the things that irritate me, she's always done this thing. She always undermines me and she does it, da, 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 da. If we take that same natural breakdown of how we naturally break down our relationships that create how we feel about the people in our lives right now, if we take that same system and apply it to acting, we get the same results. We then become connected to these characters in this world or these items in this world. So if you were to sit down and go, just like I said with your mom, but let's say you're doing a scene between, you know, and your character, let's say your character, let's say in real life, you love your mom, you have a healthy relationship with your mom, other than the really irritating thing she does. But let's say that you're now playing a character who hates their mom. And you're like, well, I love my mom. I don't know, I wouldn't never hate my mom. Okay, well, let's apply how we naturally connect to relationships in our real life and say, okay, how do you feel about your mom? You go, well, I hate her. Okay, why? And maybe it's in the script, maybe it's not. But if we can go through and find justifications to justify why you hate your mom, you go, well, she beat me when I was this age, or she let my stepfather molest me, or she abandoned me, like she gave me up for adoption or whatever else. If you were to go into that and start developing the history of that led you up to the decision of I hate them, you've created a history that honors where your character is in their story, right? And now let's say we take that same character and we jump in the time. Let's say the next scene jumps back, it's a flashback 15 years before, and it's going, oh well, you and your character and their mom are on good terms together. Well, then you have to create the history in order to honor that as well. But if you do it just as we do it in our natural life, where I sit there and I go, how do you feel about roller coasters? You could go, I hate roller coasters. Why? Well, when I was 5 years old, and this is what we do, we go into this whole back history of, well, when I was 5 years old, to justify our feelings. When I was 5 years old, my dad took me there and he forced me onto it. And then I threw up every place. And then he forced me onto another one and said, today it's time to be a man and face my fears and everything else. And when I think of roller coaster, I just think of, it just makes me angry, because it reminds me of that day and how my dad, abused me and forced me to do this or to do that. Right. So this is how we naturally connect to our real world. You see all this cool stuff behind me. I have a relationship to all of it. If I pull out one thing, I'll tell you exactly, why I love it, where it came from. There's a story to it. And then there's stuff that I don't like, I've gotten rid of it because I don't want it. I don't want the history to come with it or whatever else. Our characters are just the same way. Our characters don't exist without us. Like, the director has a perspective, writer has a perspective, and on and on and on. But it's just words on a page until we bring them to life. And I have found the simplest way for me to make it make sense and to step into it without being up in my head, but actually in my heart and present and listening, is to understand the relationships that are encapsulated in that world. So what I'll do is I'll go through a script and I'll look and one by one, and I'll get these, let me see if I got one right here. Yeah. I'll get these composition books, right? And I will write on it, whatever the project is. And then on one page, as I go through the script, I'll find a character, I'll find a character, and I will write down I'll write their name at the top. And then underneath that, and I'll say, who are they? They're my sister, they're my brother, they're, a stranger. Isn't it interesting that I talk about this? Here's how, sorry, I'll come back to this. Here's how important relationships are to us. Here's how powerful they are, how much they affect us. Is that if your mom called you an asshole, you'd be hurt. Be like, Mom, why'd you call me an asshole? Like, what's up with that? But if you walked outside, especially like LA, a big city or something like that, where there's, street people on the street and things like that. If you walked outside, some random person walked by and said, you're an asshole, probably be like, cool, dude, whatever. Like, it wouldn't really have an effect on you. Well, why not? Like, when your mom said it, it affected you deeply. But when this Stranger said it. It didn't have that big of an effect on me. Well, the reason is because the relationship, because when your mom says that to you, it means something because there's a history there. But when the stranger, like, you have no dog in the fight with them, right? So you're just like, okay, whatever, you're a crazy person, you're whatever. So if we approach our script the same way, who are they? Brother, sister, stranger? How do I feel about them? I love them. All right, tell me why you love them. Well, I love them because of this, because of that. And again, a lot of this information can come from the script. If you look at the script and you see that, and they either talk about it or they do it. He saves his life, or he talks about when they were kids. You sit there and go like, well, I love them because all these reasons. Because and you write out like you're doing a diary, journal, writing in your diary. And you go, I love my brother because da 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 da, and you just keep writing it out until it evokes this emotion out of you. And then you go, and I also love them because, and you could just think of all the ways that you love them. And if you want to create some internal conflict, but here's the things that I hate about them, right? And you can write out, oh, I hate when he does this, and I hate when he does that, and I hate when he does that. And now that's a reality to you. That character becomes a reality to you. So then when you step into a script, or I'm sorry, when you step into the scene with the other actor who's playing your brother or playing that other character, when they say something, it affects you, just like when your mom called you an asshole. It affects you in a certain way, which then evokes the lines from the page to come out in a certain way. And that's where we get, when you hear about, whether you hear in interviews or talk, but just the different things that different actors bring to a project, their perspective, their background, the way they approach a character. Like you'll hear that like, well, I love the way he approaches or she approaches the character. But it's how do you see the relationships in the world that you're stepping into? And how do you see them? How do you relate to them? How do you make them make sense to you? Right? And in doing that, you bring a original perspective to the character, to the script. And this leads you to doing or saying things like, which I've had to do a couple times, gone to the director after like reading a scene, and I've read the whole, like I've read the script, and it, when you read a script and you really see the journey, you see how the character acts in certain situations. If they get a gun pulled on them and they're used to being around guns, and being threatened, like a gangster or something like that, they get a gun pulled on them and they're just like, oh, are you trying to scare me? I'm not scared. Like that type attitude. And it happens 1, 2, 3 times. But then all of a sudden you get to a scene and somebody pulls a gun on them and they're just like, oh my God, please don't shoot me. Like it's so out of character that I've had to like go to the director on a couple different projects, and and respectfully too. It's not like something you just like, oh, but I've gone to a director and been like, my character wouldn't do this. And then they go, well, what do you mean? Because then you're just like, oh, you're being a diva actor or whatever. But like, you're not, but I was able to go because I broke down the characters in the sense of their relationships to everybody in the world. I'm like, like the gun, for instance, that's a relationship right there. How do you feel about guns? I'm okay with guns. I've had a gun pulled on me 50 times when I was a kid. Like, it doesn't like, it could be your relationship to death. Like, I don't care about dying. Like that's your character's point of view on death and guns. So then when they come to the scene where they're scared of the gun being pulled, be like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like they've never been scared before. Like, why all of a sudden are they scared now? And I can't remember the exact scenes or what the situation was, but in the times that I've brought it to directors, but they look at, and I plead the case. I'm like, look, this is how they normally act in these other situations. And all of a sudden, without a a catalyst to shift, that shifts their perspective or anything else. They're just doing this. And what you realize is, you know, as the writer or the director, they're so caught up in the script and their relationship to it that, you know, they get caught in, you know, that saying that, you know, you can't see the trees through the, you know, the trees in the forest type thing, is that they didn't even realize they're like this disconnect happened. And they go, oh, you know, it'd be cool to see that, or like this, the character needs to be scared in the scene, but without justification. So then they're able to look at it and go, you're right, that doesn't make any sense. So we can either write something in there to justify that, or maybe he's acting like he's scared to get the upper hand on the person who has the gun, or, you know, to get them to confess something because they think they have the power, something, you know, something like that. But that whole approaching the director and going, my character wouldn't do this, doesn't come from me, the actor. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't want to do that. You know, that scares me, or I think it's stupid. It comes from, I understand how this character sees this world and navigates in this world, right? This doesn't feel in alignment with what their journey has been. And I mean, even think about that, like relationships, they envelop our entire world, not just, you know, the person or the things, but the time. You know, like you think about this. If you're a Black or a person of color, right? And I love using this example because it proves so much about how important time is to us. Is that if you were a person of color, and let's say current day, you're like out in public and you're like, I need to go to the bathroom. You'd see a bathroom, you go to it, right? But if I was to take you back to 1920 and go, okay, you're in public and you need to go to the bathroom, what would you do? And you'd have to look for a bathroom specific to people of color, right? Because at that time there was segregation, there was all these things that said you're classified over here, you're classified over here. And so if I was just like, well, go to that bathroom in 1920, you'd be like, no, I can't, you know, they'll kill me. So time, where we're at in the timeline of history or whatever it is, or like if you jump to the future, you know, which is more imaginative, but like, what are the rules of that and your relationship to that? But the relationship to time even affects our experience in the journey of our characters, right? So you have to take that into account, you know? So that then will determine, how do you talk to people? How do you respond to people? You know, again, like something as simple as jumping back in time. And I know, like, as we get older, we all look back and go, you know, in my day, you wouldn't talk to your parents like that. But like back when I was growing up, you'd get spanked, get whipped, and that was acceptable, right? But now you have, like, you know, kids talking back to their parents and telling them what's what and everything, and the parents are just like, oh, you know, Billy, you know, he's upset right now. But my relationship to, as a child, you know, growing up, of knowing what the consequences were, we're talking back to my parents versus you know, somebody who's growing up right now and how they talk to their parents, it's a different relationship. And so understanding that relationships, I'm going to go back and count how many times I said relationships in this. I'm sitting here going, I've said it a lot. But relationships, they make up our world, right? Like everything, like I said, everything behind me, everything here, this apartment itself, this shirt, like I put this on today because it makes me feel a certain way. Everything in our life we have a relationship to. And if you understand that, and you can apply that same ideology to approaching the world within a script, the world within, and then you create a relationship with every little thing in that script, then the script becomes your reality and you start living in it and becomes your truth. It becomes your experience, right? So, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them. I love to, we got some time left, but I want to leave room for, any of that, anything and again, that's anything I've talked about today or anything else, but I want you to think about this. This week, sit down and think about all the relationships that you have in your life, from the littlest things, your apartment, your house, your kids, your front yard. Like if you have a yard, like do you like it? Do you not like it? Why not? If so, why? If not, why? Your clothes, like go to your closet, look at your clothes. I love that shirt. Why do I love that shirt? Because I hate those pants. Why do I hate those pants? And just like, you can do it on paper, just mentally do it and go through and just look at how you connect to your reality, to your world, just in normal everyday life. Do you love your car? Are you okay with your car? Do you hate your car? Look at your bank account. Do you love your bank account? Do you hate your bank account? Look at the food you eat. Look at your friends. Look at your family. Right? We could all go through. I like this. I like this person in my family. I love that person in my family. That person in my family, I hate them. And you could tell me why. You could go down a laundry list and explain why you have that relationship to them. And just kind of really go through and do that this week. And then pick up a script and pick a character. And then sit there and read through how they interact with the other characters. And again, this is a whole other lesson, but getting into, we don't say what we mean, but don't just look at what they're saying. Look at how they're acting. Look at what they're doing, what they're not doing, but find out how they feel about that character. And then just as you did in your real life, but go through and write out, who is this person? Well, it's my coworker, let's say in the script. It's my coworker. How do you feel about your coworker? I like them for these reasons. I don't like them for these reasons. And go through and I can't tell you the more detail. If you really do the homework of going around your house and in your life and kind of doing an assessment, you'll see this. But you'll want to get as detailed as possible. And the more details, the more specific. And again, watch this as you're doing the homework of your personal stuff. Like this, sorry, it's mirrored. Okay, so this Afghan right there was my grandmother made, or my great grandmother. I can't remember. I have to ask my mom. But it was with me all through my childhood. My mom gave it to me a couple of years ago. But that brings back so many memories, especially like when I was sick, things like that. And it was like, it made me feel protected and all that. That guitar pillow. That was the first thing I made in home economics class. I gave it to my mom. My mom kept it all these years and then gave it to me recently. I forgot all about it. My sister gave me this minion, but not only do I have the mental memory of it, but I have the emotional, and I can go back into that emotional, and that's why it means so much to me. And so that's what you want to do with the script is something, and these are inanimate objects, right? I got the box set right over here of the Twilight Zone, the entire series. It's my favorite series of all time, and I can tell you why. And it brings back all these emotions of when I was a kid, and I would watch it, and I'd get excited when it would come on. And these are inanimate objects. Now let's get into the animate objects of my family, my friends, things like that. If you can apply the same strategy to a script, that script will come alive. The things that you interact with in a scene, the people you interact with will mean something. Bruce says, I resonate a lot with what you're explaining about relationships and how relationships and the connection can be used in the world of script. May you speak more when you're doing a scene and having to change emotion? For example, calm to angry to back to calm. How can you channel that within a smooth flow, and how can I connect better doing that? All right, that's a great question. So I know I kind of read through that real quick. So what Bruce is asking is like, okay, so you're in a scene and like it starts out calm and then it gets explosive and then maybe it comes back to calm again. Without looking at a specific scene, Bruce, this is going to kind of be a general type answer, but hopefully I can make it clear enough. If not, do a follow-up with like type back in. But let's take a scenario where your character walks into a room, comes home, and your partner, your girlfriend, is packing her things and she's leaving. And you come in and you see this happening, and maybe I would say like things like the decision would be, if the director's like, look, I want you to come in, you catch her packing her stuff, stay calm. But then right around here, or let's say the director or the script says this, he explodes, right? And then here you explode, and then by the end of it, you kind of you kind of realize she's leaving and you're back to calm, whatever. The relationship, how I would approach that is I'd come in and go, okay, I love her, but I also know that things aren't going well, but she won't talk to me. And it pisses me off. Like, I love her. I love when we spend time together. I love all these things. But when something big happens, she doesn't talk to me. And so you come into the scene and you see her packing, and you're just like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm packing. The conversation goes on. Well, where you, why? Like, why don't just tell me what's going on? And she's like, nothing. It's just, it can't be fixed. And it's like, it can't be fixed. It can't be fixed. And then your relationship, and what I would really get into, the explosive part would be like how, when you're doing the breakdown, how pissed off it makes you that she won't talk to you. And why does it? And then I'd say, why does it piss you off so much? Because my mom would do that, or my dad would do that, is like just shut down and not explain anything, and then or blame me for everything, even though they wouldn't. Like, and I could tell you this just from my personal life, is my dad wouldn't explain something clearly to me. And if I didn't get it and I try to, he'd just be like, just do it. And then I would do it, and then it would be wrong. And then he would get mad at me. So so then just understanding that, I'd be like, well, she always wants me to understand what she's going through, but she won't talk to me. And now the explosiveness comes out. It's like, why don't you just talk to me? Talk to me. And she's, you should know by now. You should already know by now. And then she's just like, you know what? This isn't working. And then the relationship goes back to, I love her, but I deserve better. And I deserve to have a partner who will talk to me. And so then the calmness comes back in, is it realizing she's not the one for you, or if she wants to be with you, she has to communicate. And if she's not willing to, you have to let her go. Now, this is me just pulling this scenario out. But if you were to look at a scene, but basically, to simplify this even more, if it's calm, angry, calm, you have to have a relationship to the beginning of it that says, this is okay with me. This doesn't piss me off. I'm okay with seeing her pack. Maybe she's packed her bags multiple times before. And you're just like, you know what? There she goes again. And so your character's not going to get upset because it's happened before. You justify the outcome. It's kind of a reverse engineering thing. But then the explosiveness, you have to justify that. Why am I getting angry? Why does it piss me off? And if you can justify by creating the history of things like that piss you off, then it just, like I was just talking about how my dad, I'm sure you could see it come up in me, the history of my dad doing that stuff to me. It just naturally comes up. So if you go, okay, my character's got to get angry here. Why is he getting angry? Well, he's getting angry because she won't talk to him. Well, why does that piss him off? Or why does that piss me off? Well, because my mom wouldn't talk to me, and then she just packed up and left one day, and you start creating the history, you start working backwards, creating the history that evokes that emotion in that moment. And then, okay, why am I calm again? Because I realize, like, this isn't for me. And I love myself more than I love, and I deserve better. And so if she wants to go, she can go. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question. If not, Bruce, feel free to follow up with that. There's also getting ready to relaunch it again, but the script analysis and character breakdown course really goes. I have better examples and with scripts and everything that explain that more clearly, but it really goes into relationships even more so. But yeah, it's really just you have to justify. We know the outcome. They get pissed off, they fall in love, whatever. We already know the outcome. What we have to do is create the history behind it that leads up to that moment being authentic, if that makes sense. And so, and where our creativity is as I think of, like a painter comes in, like the script, the character is a blank canvas. You have all the colors in the world that you can possibly have with a paintbrush, and how you use those colors is up to you. So I go, Bruce, at this point, I need you to lose your shit. And that could probably be that, and that might be a good note on some days. If a lot of directors don't know how to talk to actors or explain it to us, but so they just go, be more angry. So we have to go, okay, why would I be more angry? And then we go through and we go, well, she does this and he does that, or whatever, she does that, and we create the history to then justify the emotion. That's the best way to say it. We create the history to justify the emotion. Let me see. Bruce, makes a lot of sense. History and relationship, bad or good, is good to channel that feeling. A good bringing a script to life. Yeah. I hope I'm reading this correct. Yeah. I mean, history, like, Bruce, how you feel about the world and everything in your world right now, you feel that way because of your history with money, your history with women, your history with men, your history with your mom, your dad. Like, how you feel about your mom, your dad, money, blue cheese, swimming in the ocean. Like, some people are, I don't like swimming in the ocean. Why? Well, I saw Jaws when I was a kid, right? Because of their relationship and how they were impacted as a child now affects them as an adult, to where they won't go swim in the ocean because they're scared. Your history dictates your experience. And if that is true, then your character's history dictates their experience. Okay, cool. Joanna says, how do you start the process to find the humanity or relationships that shape a character that is villainous, otherworldly, or what would be an extreme version of part of you? Oh, okay. So Joanna is saying, how do you start how do you find humanity um, in a character that's villainous? Well, number one, I would say don't look at the character as villainous. Like, you saw Hitler didn't think he was wrong. Thanos didn't think he was wrong. First of all, because I think about this often. Like characters that we see on screen, on paper, in books, on stage, whatever, they can only be written from the perspective of a human experience because that's all we know. Like we don't have an alien or anything like that coming and giving us a different perspective, right? So if you think about that, human beings write stories. And so therefore, all that the character can come from is from a human perspective. And human perspective from my experience is that the bad guy never thinks they're the bad guy, right? There's a CIA agent interview that I watch on the CIA agent who she's former CIA agent. She left and she started a company utilizing all her resources that she had created over the years in the CIA to help people around the world. I think for stop human trafficking and all these other things. But in her interview, she goes, I've worked behind the lines with Al Qaeda and I've worked, United States. I've worked all over undercover and all these other things. And she goes, the one thing they all have in common is they all think they're the good guys. They all think they're right. And it's true. Like everybody depends on where you go, depends on what the perspective is. Just like Einstein said about, distance and everything is like, what's the center of the universe? It depends on where you're at because it's all relative. It's the center keeps moving depending on where you're standing at that moment. So what I would say, the process to start looking at a villain is the same way you would approach the hero, which is going, how do I feel about these? If what I loved about Thanos and if you haven't seen it by now, like I try not to give out any spoilers, but what I loved about Thanos was that the whole time we see him as this, like from Thanos is coming for I don't know how many movies. They're like, Thanos is coming, the bad guy's coming. But then finally we get towards the end of his journey and he explains the reason he's doing what he's doing. And he honestly believes, like he literally goes, by me wiping, like everyone is suffering. So in order to continue life as we know it, if wiping out half of the population allows the other half to flourish, I'll be the bad guy. I'll be the guy willing to do that because nobody else is willing to do it. And so I don't agree with how he's doing it, but I understand why he's doing it. And he cares so much about the continuation of the existence of life as we know it in all forms across the entire universe, that he's willing to not only murder half of the population, but he's willing to be the one that they go, you're the bad guy. And you're for all eternity, we'll know you as the bad guy. And so I would look at their humanity. I would look at why they're doing what they're doing. Like other than like a Ted Bundy or, like a true, I don't know if sociopath is the right word, but someone who's just not there. like, you know, the Joker or something like that. Somebody who just is so disconnected from reality that they don't understand the difference between right and wrong and things like that. Um, I would approach it from, they're not the villain. Again, Hitler didn't think he was wrong. He, you know, I can't speak for him in the sense, but you know, whatever he was doing, he justified in his mind as being the right thing to do for whatever reason. And I do it, like, you know, we all do it all day long, you know, especially people who are like, you know, I don't know, like me, that's just like, well, if they were to move the door over there, it'd be more efficient. If you know, people, I always have this thing when I get stuck behind somebody at a green arrow, like a left green turn arrow. I'm like, if you can't, and they sit there and they can't figure it out. I'm like, I feel like if you can't navigate a left green turn arrow, you shouldn't have your license. Like, I'm not taking anybody's, like, killing anybody, but that's simple, man. How is that any different than going, if this person's license was taken, the world would be a better place? Is any different than saying that if by wiping out half of the universe, the universe will be a better place? So we're looking for their humanity. How do I feel about this? Why? Right? Don't look at the bad guy as the bad guy. Look at the bad guy as a human. Just find their humanity, find out why they're doing what they're doing. Because, and I'll tell you this, being in the Marine Corps and everything else, it was an eye opener after I got out and I really was able to look back and reflect, is that, and experience in Iraq and everything else, is like, the United States, and I love the United States, but we've, you know, not we as a collective, but like the image of the United States and leaders throughout time have made some really bad decisions that have then caused these people to think of us like the enemy, and because of these actions. And now we, you know, most of us go through life like caring about people and everything else, and you go to certain countries and people hate us, not because of what you as the individual did, but what the image of the country has done. And it's like, you know, and who knows, and like at the time I thought what I was doing was the right thing because I didn't understand the other side of it. So to somebody in the world, you could be the bad guy, you know, but you don't understand why, because you're like, I was just trying to help. So I'd approach the villainous characters the same way, is like, they're not really a bad guy. At least in their mind, they're not the bad guy. They're doing the best they can. So, so what about those sociopath characters? Is more research based on into the intellect? No, so the sociopathic ones, like a Joker or something like that, you know, because the Joker, I've never seen the Joker. Well, I guess maybe I have with the latest film, but the Joker I've never seen is, I guess with Joaquin Phoenix Joker, it's like you could see he loved his mom. You know, he was upset about his mom and you know how he was as a kid and things like that. But the majority of the Joker, like, he did it because it was fun. So again, it's the same thing, is that you would sit here and go, well, torturing people, you know, I love it. Why do I love torturing people? Because I love seeing the life dissipate from their eyes, or I love to see them beg for their life, especially the tough guys. I love seeing the tough guys who go around and torture and hurt people and, you know, think they're the badass. And then I love to see them when I swing them upside down over a vat of acid, and paint their face with clown makeup. I love to see them beg for their life and see that they're just a scared little child, you know, like anyone else. So I would go into, with the sociopathic ones, I would, like, clearly the Joker enjoys doing it, otherwise he wouldn't do it, you know. And there's things that he hates losing to Batman, he hates, you know, he hates losing to the Riddler or things like that. Like, you would go in and go, Batman, you know, I love him. Why does the Joker love Batman? Because he's his ultimate nemesis, like his ultimate challenge. They keep going back and forth, back and forth. Like, the Joker, if Batman died, the Joker wouldn't have a purpose, because he doesn't, in his mind, doesn't have a of a worthy opponent, right? So to me, I would approach it as the Joker, is that I love Batman because he, like in the Jerry Maguire, he completes me, type thing. But what does he hate? He hates order. He hates the law. He hates um, the control of society, structured society where people are controlled and put to work like working ants. And so he wants to disrupt that. Like you find, again, it's, if you were to separate you, Joanna, you, Bruce, anybody else out there, that the actor, you separate again, if you had to play the role of Hitler in a film or a project, you couldn't sit there and go, well, I don't like that, like I don't like that. You can't judge the character. You have to justify them in order to honor the story so that it has the impact that it has, right? So you have to sit there and go, okay, like I said with the Thanos thing, like I don't agree with, but I understand, because we all do things, again, we all do things that at the time we think are the right thing, but then in hindsight we're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it hurt people. I didn't realize it did this. I didn't realize it did that. So we've all done it. Not many people have done it viciously, right? But as the actor, you sit here and go, okay, look, I got to set my personal feelings aside to honor this, and I have to step. So again, you can go, I don't agree with it. I would never condone that. And I would never condone killing, anyone, much less trying to exterminate an entire a race or religion of people. But if he, he feels frustrated, he feels that he's doing the right thing, I understand it, because I'm the guy that sits there and goes, if I wish stupid people would just have their licenses taken away, and there'd be less traffic, things would go smoother. So hope that makes sense. Bruce, how do you justify within yourself when the scene or director requires you to feel or believe in something you feel opposite about it? Or how do you come to terms within yourself to deliver that? So Bruce, like kind of just what I just said about going, I don't agree with it, but I understand it, type thing. And maybe you don't understand it. But like acting, that's what I love about acting. Like that's what I fell in love with acting when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I heard somebody else say this recently, and I was like, holy shit, there's somebody else that felt that way. But I can't remember who. But when I was a kid, like I remember, like when we're kids, people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be as a grow? And every week it would change, because I wanted to experience so much in the world. And I actually remember getting sad because I was like, well, I won't be able to do it all in one lifetime, until I realized acting. And then I was like, oh, if I'm an actor, I could do it all in one lifetime. And so acting is an exploration of the human psyche and the human soul. And if you don't agree with something, or it goes against your morals, you get to explore that part of you. I've had so many actors over the past 10 years that I've worked with, that when they have to do a rape scene, whether they, especially if they're the rapist, the people play the rapist usually have the hardest times doing it, because they're like, I would never do this to a human being. Or women especially that have to kill somebody, and they're like, well, I wouldn't kill anybody. I'm just like, I go, let's take the killing. People go, well, I would never hurt anybody. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, do you have a niece or a nephew, or sister, brother, or something like that? They're like, yeah, I got a niece, nephew, whatever. And go, okay, if somebody was to kidnap them, torture them, rape them, kill them, and then just throw them out on the street, how'd you feel? And then all of a sudden this rage comes up, and all of a sudden they go, I don't even know. I don't know. I'd kill him. I'd kill him. And I'd be like, well, a second ago, you just said you could never hurt anybody. You're the Zen Buddhist. You're the, and they're just like, well, that's different. I'm like, right. Depends on the circumstances. So what I use that example to get people to acknowledge that there is a part of there's a possibility of everything within them, right? What Hitler did and what Martin Luther King did, both those possibilities exist within every human being. Now you choose not to be this way, or you choose to be that way, whatever it is, but to deny that you couldn't murder people, to deny that you couldn't fall in love with a man if you're a man, or fall in love with another woman if you're a woman, to deny that all these possibilities don't exist within you under the right circumstances, is to deny humanity itself. And so you as the actor, just by acknowledging that this is a possibility. And what's great about acting is that I can be in an action movie and I can get shot and go, ah, and then have this great death scene. And they call cut and I'm not dead. Just like I can be an actor and I can torture and I can kill people and I can explore the dark side of me. But after they call cut, nobody's dead. Nobody's really hurt. And I got to see what it would be like to be that villainous bad guy, if you will. But I'm not. I go home to my wife, my kids, whatever it is, my pets and everything. And I didn't actually kill anybody. I didn't actually do anything bad. I can be the Wolf of Wall Street, and I can scam people out of millions of dollars, and I can love it, and I can do all these great stuff, and whoa, and I can punch my hand through a wall, and I can, kill a hooker or something like that, and then cut's called, and then everything's okay, and I got to go, oh, that's interesting. That's what that person's going through. That's what, again, like the colors, the Picasso. Oh, that's what those two colors look like together. It's not good. It's not bad. Nobody's dead. So if a director asks you to do something, now, let me just leave it at this, or let me put this disclaimer. If they're asking you to do something that, like, take off your clothes, have sex with them, or do something that's you didn't agree to, that's not in the script, or that not, in that sense, that's different. Everything I'm talking about is going, the character does this and it's justified and it's along the lines and it doesn't make sense to you, or it doesn't, fall in your moral compass of what's right in the world. But so I just want to be clear on that, because a lot of people are put in positions and guilted into doing things they don't want to do, or that's unsafe, especially stunts. Don't do stunts if there's not stunt people and, or weapons. We saw this Alec Baldwin thing. Don't be on set with weapons if there's not a proper armor and proper stunt people and things. Like, don't put yourself in a position where you just want to work so bad, or you want to do a role so bad that you put your physical body or anything at risk. But when it comes to your ideology and your morals and things like that, not again, if you're like, especially if you're a religious person and your religion says that you can't do this, and you really, like, that's part of who you are, don't undermine that. Go, I can't do that. I can't, show my hair. I can't do a sex scene or something like that. But if it comes to the point of you, like, if you're playing the Joker and in this scene, the Joker's torturing and killing people, and you're like, well, I don't believe in that, and you have to make it make sense to you. You have to justify it. What's a way that you can justify, even if you're like, I don't know, make it make sense to you to honor that character. So I hope that's clear. Because I hate when people are taken advantage of, and we feel like we have to do things. I was actually on a movie an action movie, and they're, like, and I told him, I said, I'm not doing this unless there's a proper stunt person and a proper armor. And I was, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we were in the middle of a scene, shooting the scene. It wasn't, it was a talking scene really, but one of the other actors is like, showed me his weapon, and it had this action to it that no other gun I'd ever seen had. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Where'd you get it? He's like, oh, it's mine. I brought it from home. And I was like, did you check it with the armor? He's like, no, I just brought it. And I got up and walked off set, and I shut down production, and I pulled the director, the producer, and the armor to the side, and I just went off on him. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you're allowing, like, somebody can get killed. And I actually got criticized for that. Like, people were on the production and everything calling me diva and I don't know what else. And that was like a couple of years back, and now the thing with Alec Baldwin happened. I never regretted that at all, because I've heard too many stories. So you got to be willing to, in that sense, draw your boundaries. But in the sense of the exploring the character and why they're doing what they're doing, to me is justify it, make it make sense to you however you need to. Yeah, you're welcome, Bruce. So yeah. So just to kind of wrap this up, we went a little bit long, but I think it was good. It was a good conversation. But just to wrap it up, man, it's just, relationships are everything. In our real life, if you want to call it that. Relationships are our reality. And if you want your reality to shift, you change the relationship. And the same thing happens within a script. Again, if you were to sit there and go, who is she? She's my girlfriend. How do I feel about her? I love her. Why do I love her? I love her all these reasons. And then you do a take, and then the director comes up and goes, you don't love her that much. It's, he's not that in love with her. Then you go back to the relationship, instead of I love her for all these reasons, you're like, I like her. I like her because this, and this, and all of a sudden, naturally, just because you've changed the relationship in your mind and in your heart, the performance then shifts, and you go, yeah, I can see he likes her, but he's not in love with her. So that's how we use relationships to connect to the world within our script, and to make our performances authentic and truthful in the moment, and allow ourselves to explore. So hope everybody enjoyed today's talk. That was fun. I love talking about relationships because it was such a impactful shift for me in my work, and just making it so much easier and so much more fun, and taking the weight off my shoulders to be able to step. Oh, and I'll say this real quick. If you have issues when it comes to auditioning, especially, like, just do a quick, if especially if you go in an audition and they're like, that was great, or would you mind reading for another role? Go outside for 5 minutes. Most actors try to learn the lines really quick, and I tell people, don't try to learn the lines, understand the relationship. So go outside, look at it real quick, and go, oh, look how they're acting to each other. How do I feel about her? I love her. Why do I love her? For these. Go in with the relationship, and then be willing just to read the lines, and the relationship will come through, and you'll come across as a brilliant, amazing actor, because people don't care if you get the lines right or not. I mean, there's very few that are like, you have to say it verbatim. They do care about it. But at the same time, I can type whatever I want onto my computer, and then highlight it and right click and have the computer speak it. It will speak it flawlessly, everything I typed, but it has no emotion behind it. We bring the emotion, we bring the perspective. Computers can't do that, at least not yet. So connect to the relationship, make the relationship number one, and then go into all the other stuff, because the relationship will make things make sense to you and make it real for you, to where you won't have to do as much work. Cool. All right. So hope you all enjoyed it. And if you have any other further questions, as always, you can email at actorshole@gmail.com. Visit actorshole.com for more stuff. And we're going to do this every week. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And in the meantime, enjoy your creative journey and stay empowered and self-sustaining actor. We'll see you later.